You guys, these are my favorite books so far for 2021, and I haven't shared any of them with you so far this year. I looked back on my video feed to see if I have done any wrap-ups of these books, and I haven't. I've actually only done one wrap-up so far this year, which I could do better at, but I did the wrap-up for Historathon, and none of those books are on here, so these are all books that I haven't even shared with you guys that I just loved. So stay tuned for my favorites of 2021. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to my channel if you are new here, or welcome back if you've been coming for a while. Like I said, I am so excited to share these books with you. Oh, these books are all so good, and I would love for you guys to read them. And so I'm going to share them in no real particular order, except I am saving my favorite for the very end. So let me start with this book, The Devil and the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. So good. So much fun, you guys. I love the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and so I knew I had to pick this up, and it did not disappoint. His writing is so unique. I'm not sure if I would throw it into like historical fiction or thriller or fantasy. He just has a very unique writing style, and I love it. It's so much fun. This book in particular has to do with a ship, kind of a haunted ship. So it's taking this man, Samuel Pepys, who was once a great detective, but for some reason he has been arrested and he is sentenced to execution, but they have to kind of take him to, I believe, Amsterdam to do that. The fact that he is on board has brought the devil to the ship and is causing all these crazy things to happen. And is it really the devil? What's going on? That's really what this book is about. I thought it was so twisty. I did not see a lot of the twists and turns coming. The different characters were so interesting, but you're also trying to figure out, like, is somebody involved in this? What's going on? It kind of has one of those, like, what's it called, like a closed room mystery aspects about it, because you only have so many people on the ship, right? And things are happening. So either somebody on the ship is making them happen, or like a lot of the people are believing there's like a devil that's coming on board. So I loved that aspect of the story. I love the fact that it was kind of, historically speaking, like about ships and sailing, but that really wasn't the focus of it. It was more this mystery as to like what's going on. And I loved the end. I think there are some people who don't like the end, but that was the same with the Evelyn Hardcastle book. I highly recommend this book, even if, say, you didn't like Evelyn Hardcastle because that was a little too difficult to follow. This is a little less. There's not as many characters involved. It was so much fun. I really, really liked it. Okay, guys, the next one I almost picked as my favorite because it's just so good. I was raving about this for weeks and weeks and weeks after I read it. So it's Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. I have never read one of her books, but I've heard such good things about this book, and oh my gosh, it did not disappoint. It is such a simple concept that was written so well and so interestingly. It's basically about this idea that there's 10 people that were brought to an island in different ways. Through letters, through different people. They were all instructed or invited to come to this island. And then it starts unraveling, and it follows this little poem. I think it's a little soldier poem, like 10 little soldiers, something. I can't quite remember it, but it goes through this poem, and they realize that like people are starting to die, and they're dying one by one by one. Again, it feels like it's kind of a locked room sort of mystery because it's on this island and nobody else is on this island, and they're searching and all of this stuff, and it is so suspenseful. And I spent so much of this book going back and forth and being like, well, maybe it's this guy. Maybe he did it. Or maybe it's this lady. I think she's suspicious. And I did that the whole time. And of course I wasn't right, but that's the fun of mysteries. And the end was fantastic. You read it and you're like, what? That's it? Wait. And then they explain some more and you're like, oh, that's so clever. So good. So good. It is short. It's a fast read. Even if you don't like mysteries, I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. The other one I just loved was this book. So it's called The Other Einstein. It's by Marie Benedict. I haven't read any of her other books, but now I really want to after this book. I buddy read this with Emily over at Novelle Novels. She's such a sweetheart, so go check out her channel. I'll link it below. But this book was very fun. It was about Einstein's first wife. Her name was Mitza, and she was so smart. They met at an elite school where they were studying physics in Zurich. And you're talking to 1896, so women very rarely were pursuing science, let alone physics, during this time frame. It was a very male-heavy field, And so she was just super smart. And then they got married. And then it tells the story of their life together. And this is historical fiction, but I really did enjoy the fact that it talks about this idea that his first wife, Mitza, may have had a significant role in the development of the theory of relativity, which is a big deal. He revolutionized the field of physics and science in general with that theory. And to say, well, maybe she had a hand in that, and just due to society and culture at that time, she wasn't given credit. I really attached to the characters and kind of what happens in their marriage and things like that, which is, I'm not going to spoil it because that is some of the best stuff in my opinion, is just kind of watching them do life together and do it badly in a lot of ways. And so, such a good book. Oh my gosh, I highly recommend reading this, especially if you like historical fiction. But I mean, I am a scientist, and so I always love books about scientists, and so hopefully that's as interesting to other people as it was to me, but I really thought it was good. The next book I also listened to, and that was Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. I will put a picture of the book right there. I love this. Oh my gosh, the whole Nevermore series is very enjoyable. It has those Harry Potter vibes. It's like middle grade, but there's a lot of action and there's a bad guy and things like that. I feel like it did just an excellent job of developing the main character. I think her name's Morgan Crow's her character, really, as she's like growing into a person who, one, is more confident and sure of herself, and is just kind of faced with decisions and hardships and making good decisions and bad decisions and having to apologize and things like that. But also kind of as she's like developing her magic, and it's just really fun. And I think there's supposed to be 7 books. And so this is kind of mid in the series, and it was just really, really good. So I'm so excited for the next one. I have no idea when it comes out, but I recommend these books, and especially on audiobook, I've been enjoying them all. So Hollowpox, great book. All right, next book on my list of favorites for the year was this book. We read this in my book club, my historical fiction book club called Adventures in History. This was our May book club pick, and I really liked it. And so if you want more details on this, or if you've read it and want to hear kind of my spoilery thoughts on it, please go see the video. I'll link it above. This book was so good. It has to do with the Oregon Trail. So you're talking mid-1800s, covered wagons, Oregon Trail, going out onto the plains and starting to homestead, things like that. But it really follows this family as they're in a covered wagon on a wagon train going west. It follows this young woman who is a recent widower, but she's not very old. She's still traveling with her family. And then there is this man who is acting more as a guide, and he is half Indian, so he's half Pawnee, half white. And so he struggles a bit with kind of where does he fit. So I really enjoyed that storyline where it talks about kind of the Native Americans and the encroachment of the white settlers and things like that. I think this book did an excellent job. It is such a tearjerker. I was so invested in the characters, and I just loved the setting. I thought it was just so fascinating to hear about what it would have been like to travel in a wagon train going west. And it's just so far removed from our everyday lives, you know? And so it was so good. So I highly recommend Where the Lost Wander. Another book I just recently finished, and I did a whole vlog about reading all of Riley Sager's books, and I read Final Girls for that vlog. This was his debut book, and I loved it. It was so much fun. It is about final girls, which is a term for women who have survived massacres, whatever kind they were, but it's kind of like the last one standing sort of idea, are dubbed final girls. And then in this story, you follow 3 of those final girls, but one, the main character, is called Quincy, and she's trying to kind of like get on with life, feel like everything's normal, not a big deal. Then in this book, kind of her life unravels, really. A lot of her past is coming back to her because she forgot about it, and then a lot of things come to head. And I won't say any more than that because it's a thriller book, but it's full of so many twists and turns. It's so good. It's so much fun, especially if you like thriller books. I really recommend this one. Really, all of Riley Sager's books. I'll link that vlog above if you're at all interested. Another book that was a favorite so far for this year was The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. And I don't have a copy of it because I borrowed it from my sister. And this is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. And I've been really enjoying the trilogy. And I loved the first book. It was full of action and just so much fun. The second book was less action. There was a lot more character development, plot development, and I feel like that is a lot of people's complaint of this book, but I really enjoyed it because I know that I love books that kind of follow character development, especially in series. So this was really good. And it ended up on my favorites list because of the end. The end was just so crazy. And so now I have to pick up the third book. So I can't say more than that, sorry, because I don't want to ruin it, but I really enjoyed it for those reasons. So my absolute favorite book so far of 2021 was Codename Ellen by Ariel Lawhon, and I also don't own this book. I listened to it and I loved it. It was one of those moments where I couldn't stop listening to it. My husband even remarked that, like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, there's this book and I don't have a physical copy, and so I just have to listen to it over here on the couch. So he thought I was a little bit of a weirdo, but that's okay. This book is based on a true story of a woman who was highly involved in the resistance during World War II. So this story is historical fiction, but it is based on her life, which is just so very interesting. And it spans like before World War II to after World War II. So you get to know her character a little bit in the beginning. And what I loved about this book is it flipped kind of timelines. So it kind of started with this like, oh, she's like jumping out of a helicopter into occupied France sort of idea. And she's just kind of a badass, right? But then it'll flip to kind of 1936 when she's younger and she's in England for various reasons. It really documents kind of this lead up as she develops this fire for resisting the Nazis and what kind of drove that, how she got to where she was at when she's like jumping out of a plane. And I appreciated that because it gave you just enough action, but then it gives you the backstory that you're also getting really connected and rooted into this character. And I just thought it was fascinating. I really enjoyed kind of hearing more about how she was acting as a spy and how she was one of the most sought after spies by the Nazis because of all the different work she was doing and how she was working for France and then England and all these things. And it was just so fascinating, and how she was trying to keep her private life separate to try and protect her husband. And oh my gosh, I really enjoyed the relationship with the husband. I enjoyed watching them meet and all the things. And it's just such a good book on kind of evoking all the emotions. And then at the same time, you're just rooting for her to just fight the Nazis, if you will. I don't know. I'm not usually a like spy book person, but the fact that I knew that this was a true story, that I just found her character so much fun to read about and just root for and be like, man, you go, girl. That's just kind of how I felt about this book. And so I really enjoyed it. And I highly recommend it, especially if you enjoy World War II historical fiction books and also the kind of like badass female characters. It was fantastic. So I highly recommend this book. And also, I think for me personally, it connected because there's a lot of these like airdrops and logistics and things like that that had to do with communicating with England and getting what they needed. And I used to fight fires, forest fires, and we would do a lot of that stuff. And it was just kind of reminiscent of that. And so maybe I just kind of felt a little more connected to the story and the plotline because of that. I don't know. It was just really good. There's so many reasons I liked it. So that was my favorite so far of 2021. I have no idea what the second half of 2021 is going to hold for me book-wise, but the fact that I have read 8 amazing books so far, I'm just very satisfied with. And it was funny because I was looking back at the books and being like, this makes complete sense on kind of the genres I like to read. So historical fiction is a big one for me. I'd say like half of them were historical fiction, but I also love mysteries, thrillers, and a little bit of fantasy. So that pretty much is what's on my list here. So I hope you enjoyed hearing about my favorite books of the year, and I will try to do a better job of doing some wrap-up videos because I enjoy watching wrap-up videos. I enjoy hearing people's thoughts about the books they liked or didn't like, but in this case, I loved all these books, so go check them out. So anyway, let me know down below, what is your favorite book so far of 2021? All right, and I will see you in the next book video. Okay guys, have a wonderful day.